Hello, everyone. Welcome to Genealogy Adventures. I'm Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Danya Williams. It is a sad, sad day. It is a sad day.
It's a sad day. Well, first, before we get into that, thank you everyone for tuning in, sharing the next hour with us. However you normally do it, we're really happy and excited to have you here. It is indeed a sad day. Sad to hear about the announcement from President Biden. But it's exhausting. It is. We're in. We are. I mean, I know we're in a historic period because I'm exhausted. Just trying to keep up with everything. And I was thinking, especially as today, as you and I were preparing for the show and getting all of our notes together and having our kind of pre-production meeting chat, trying to do that and to beef up on the show that we're going to have today about Project 2025 and Agenda 47. While this news is breaking it seems as though every time we're preparing for the show, something major happens because we're not journalists. That's the thing. We're researchers. We have this TV show to talk about genealogy and African American history, but we're kind of in real time having to learn how to be citizen journalists. Um, and it's exhausting. And the thing that's exhausting is there's so many lies out there that is exhausting just fact checking. But as I said, today we're going to be talking about Project 2025, specifically the chapter that Benjamin Carson wrote. And if that name sounds familiar, he was Trump's Secretary of HUD. So this is chapter 15 called Department of Housing and Urban Development. We're also going to be talking about Agenda 47, which is on Trump's presidential website. Um, so that is his official policy. But between the RNC conference and all the lies that were being told on stage and everything else, and it's not just the RNC, as I told you this morning, Tanya, I spent a good deal of time because I was reading in very kind of liberal and left leaning news outlets and publications about how MAGA was in this meltdown because J.D. Vance's wife, and J.D. Vance is Trump's new VP candidate, that his wife, her parents came from the subcontinent of India. So when I say she's Indian, she comes from the subcontinent of India. And how MAGA was in meltdown because he was married to a non-white woman and had non-white children who had Asian names. That took some fact that just didn't ring true because I wasn't seeing that on X, formerly known as Twitter, which is where I would normally see these sorts of things. There wasn't even a hashtag about it. So I did my digging, and the same news outlets and the same papers and websites were referencing the same five rabidly MAGA kind of commentators. I'm not going to say their names because they just don't deserve that kind of credit. You know who they are. They're always reported on. It is really easy to find these responses to J.D. Vance's wife's ethnicity. I was actually looking at people who commented on and their comments were disgusting. I'm just going to say that now. These five or six individuals, their comments about Vance's wife were disgusting. Um, MAGA pushed back. There were people who were MAGA who actively pushed back on the blatant racism, and I just wasn't seeing anything that qualified as a MAGA breakdown. So now I'm feeling like I have to check both what's coming from the right and their media, and now I have to check what's coming from the left and their media. Ain't nobody got time for that. We're professionals, so we have to, but the average American does not have time to sift fact from fiction. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm exhausted at the moment. It's a
Okay.
lot.
Well, as you guys saw, I just sipped me a glass of wine. And I'm a professional, but I'm also human. And everything that Brian just said is true. I'm under, in reading Project 2025, and then I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even know anything about Agenda 47 until Brian told me about it today. and learning about um Agenda 47, and then making the comparisons on the things that we've read. We've only read 3 chapters with you guys, and there's no difference in the two. And the things that we've learned in the things that we've read and the things that we've listened to on different videos from the Heritage Foundation, when they get in, it's a bait and switch. That Vance is going to be kicked out. They're going to remove him. I believe it with everything in me, because according to Roberts, which is the president of the Heritage Foundation, if you paid any money into the Democratic Party, if you were not loyal to the Republican Party at any point, you are not supposed to be within that part, within this conservative realm that they're trying to create. And Vance was a staunch person against Trump.
He was a never Trumper.
He
Though
was
that
a
that is
never.
specifically, yeah,
That's
that's what
right.
he said.
That's right. That's right. So at this point, right now, and I have to get my mind right to deal with this, because the stuff, even though it was only 9 pages, the depression of this is it's crazy. It
It's
was
a
only,
lot.
yeah, it was 9 pages, but it was a lot. Um, and then now learning that Biden has stepped down, and then reading from M that Kamala is, she said, I guess it's supposed to be Governor Roy Cooper. I have not confirmed this, so I need to find out. But I gotta read on Mr. Cooper if this is true. I need to know what's going on, because the thing is, the reason why I'm so depressed is I don't know Governor Roy Cooper, but I'm going to have to vote for him, point blank, as because I don't want Trump.
I'm
So
going to share with the audience, before we really get into this, something about the Project 2025 document the book, and the Agenda 47 website content really profoundly, deeply disturbed me. And it took me a while to figure out what my gut wrenching reaction to both were, was. And that is that there is zero compassion or empathy or humanity in either of these documents. There is, but we're going to get into this later in the show, for a specific group of people who are never named specifically in this document. But I can guarantee you it is not for any person of color. There is, or homeless, or just dealing with the difficulties of living in this country. There is no humanity. There is no empathy. There is no compassion. And when we get to the bit about what happens, what they're proposing for children who have an American parent and a non American parent, what Benjamin Carson is actually proposing for them, I think that's what crystallized the cruelty for me. And if we really are that country of cruelty, and I said to Donnie on the phone, my overall impression now about the GOP as it exists in its current iteration is, if Jesus himself were to come back and to walk amongst us and to speak the same truths that he spoke in the Bible, love thy neighbor, be good to one another, support the foreigner or people who are different from you, he would be labeled as a radical, a libtard, socialist, communist. And I'm going to say it because MAGA likes to hurl this accusation to anyone who's not MAGA who questions them. A pedo. You know that's what they call us. Oh, if you're a Democrat, you're a pedophile. So if Jesus were to teach the same teachings that he taught in the Bible in 2024, he would be ridiculed, shouted down, humiliated, and just the worst things possible said against him. Unless I was taught the wrong kind of Christianity out of the Bible that I grew up with for 18 years.
Like I said, I'm done. Today is just not a good day for me. I'm telling you, I don't know about nobody else. Between reading this and hearing what I've heard and just trying to take everything in, learning about, I think I'm literally like at an it I feel like I'm at an overload. Look, the sadness that I have going on right now, it's crazy. When Brian saw me, before the show started, he was like, "Oh, you really are. Y'all don't see this big." Okay, I'm sorry, I almost cursed. y'all, y'all don't see this big bottle of wine that I got sitting beside me right now. Like I am like really over the top. So this is like really I'm getting ready to vote somebody in that I don't know. That's literally what's about to happen.
Well, we have to double check that first. So I don't want to spend any time on
Okay.
that because we,
Okay.
we have
You
to
right.
we
You
have to
right.
double check that.
You right. I'm
Um,
in here. You right. But my mind is done. I'm done. So
so for those of you who like to follow along with us as we're talking about this policy book, we're starting on page 503. That's the beginning of chapter 15. So as usual with every other chapter in the Project 2025 playbook, actually it's called something else, managing leadership,
mandate. Mandate for leaders.
mandate for leaders. So it starts off with the usual summary kind of information about what you can expect to find in this chapter, glossing over what they feel the pain points are. Um, right. So as you can imagine, they want to reset HUDs. They want to make it less bureaucratic. They want to fire all the civil servants who are in there and replace them with political appointees. Um, but funnily enough, don't say that the political appointees have to have any kind of education or background in the offices that we're going to go over, that they would be heading up. Um, where would you like to start? Because you have so much to say about this chapter. I'm going to let you go first.
Well, okay. So what I want first thing I want to do is give my kudos actually because the first two chapters that we did read, they did not cite like he did. His citations are all over the place. He was citing like a madman. Everything. He cited everything. And I want to give the kudos to him for that. However, in
And
the same
given his
and given
professional
his background,
backgrounds,
his
I'm not
doctorate, and
surprised.
then he's supposed to do that. And
Yeah.
then also as a black person, let's not stop there because as a black person, we got to show proof that we know what we talking about at all times. So that's the other thing. But on top of that, he ain't write it. I mean, he wrote it, but when I tell y'all it's cited so deeply, it's almost every other sentence. So his citations are, it could be something as simple as the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development administers a web of federal programs with mandates to support access, blah, blah, blah. And then it's cited. That means that he got that directly from them. Then you go to another sentence and then it's cited. That means he got that directly from them. So he really kind of sort of didn't write it. He just kind of copied what he got from other people. That's what was going on. Secondly, he then started to talk about what it was on each he started to talk about each individual office and he gave his overall what each individual office was, still citing all of the different things. So this led you to think, oh, he can write, getting ready to light in on each individual office.
Let's stop you there because you enlighten me, and we're talking about the bullet points that start on page 504. There's all these different offices and kind of heads of office. And what did I say to you, Danya? When I read this, I was thinking, well, okay, maybe he has a point because I didn't realize that all of this fell under HUD, which is exactly how I phrased it to you. And what did
Mm-hmm.
you say to me? Or what did
They
you say
don't.
to me? But he makes it seem as though it does.
Right. There were things that he listed under here as if they fell under HUD, and a lot of these things do not fall under HUD. And I had actually pulled up some of it to check to see. So he has the Office of Administration, for example, as if it falls under HUD. That actually falls under Office of Management. That's OMB. That's not Housing and Urban Development. So you start looking at it like this dude is on some other stuff. And and you're looking at it like it's just like a really crazy stuff. But I'm just using that one as an example because I really don't. Anyway, that's what he does. And he starts listing all of these offices that are up here. And he's talking about how bad they are and what's wrong with them and things of that nature. Mind you, now y'all remember how I was telling y'all he was citing, his citations tend to slow in these areas. This is how you know that they're starting to lie. Okay? Because this man was citing like crazy. So you knew when he was telling the truth because he was citing like crazy. Am I lying, Brian? You looking at this?
There's citations all over the place.
He does his citations, but his citations tend to slow in this area. Am I lying?
No, you are not.
Okay. So he starts to slow up his citations. You know when he's telling the truth, you know when he's not. So it's his slight and he got all these offices. Now, y'all, this is a 9-page chapter, and it starts at 503. He lists these offices from 503 to 507. That's 4 whole pages. He literally doesn't go into what he wants to talk about until 508.
And again, where I felt things could have been much more transparent, which is the opposite of what they want to achieve with this document, if he had produced an organizational chart to show where each one of these offices actually sit within the construct that he's discussing. Because that would have made it readily available if these all don't sit under HUD. They may interact with HUD in various ways, but not, as you said, not all of them fall under HUD.
Right. Exactly. So then by 508, now he goes into what he wants to talk about. And y'all, it really ain't about none of those offices. It's just
No, it is. It isn't. He
it's,
doesn't.
it, he doesn't go into any of those offices. He actually kind of sort of talks about maybe one or two, maybe just about so we're talking about, so he talks about what should happen the first day and the first year of what HUD should
Mhm.
do and how it should reform. So he says a new conservative administration can and should implement the following reforms that focus on both people and process. Implementations of these reforms simply require courageous political leadership across all of HUD's key appointed positions. This was taken from, and I'm going to tell you because this means something as to where it was taken from. That was taken from something that Trump said, wholly aside from reforms that require legislation, the next administration must ensure the key political appointees are able to acquit themselves as change agents to execute administration reforms. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It does not say. I lost it. I'm
While you're
sorry.
looking for that, I want to start with that first bullet point under first day. So in it, Dr. Carson is suggesting HUD political leadership should immediately assign all delegated powers, meaning they feel that these are powers that Congress has delegated to HUD, to politically appointed people and other official leadership positions. Change any current career leadership positions into political and non-career appointment positions. Now, okay, maybe the non-career thing might be good, but we are talking about human beings. And the adjective looking for, in the area that exposes them to the most harm, that is keeping a roof over your head and your loved one's head. Politics should be as far removed from that as humanly possible. As I'm learning in real time, rapidly in this country, humanity and politics, at the moment, they're not speaking to each other. I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive, but I'm not seeing any parity in terms of this whole Project 2025 mess. We are dealing with human beings. Um, if there's a crisis with homing security or having a roof over your head, shouldn't become a political thing, and they're turning it into a political thing. As we're going to get into more, there are all kinds of caveats about who would now be deemed worthy of being guaranteed housing and who would not be deemed worthy of
Hmm.
having housing. Um, so there's a little bit more about wanting to turn this into a much more political thing. Um,
It's not even
China,
about wanting to turn it into a political thing. They are the thing that irritates me the most about this book as a whole is that they are consistently speaking about taking the government out of your life, but this book places the government more in your life than ever before. It is consistently in your life. It makes your decisions more than anything consistently. Like you can't move without them telling you, like, this is the damn Hunger Games. I mean, I
that,
mean,
that's
it's
the analogy I was looking for.
yeah, this is the
That's,
Hunger Games. This is like you can't do anything without them telling you that you can do it. This is Hunger Games type things. It's crazy.
it is.
Oh,
It is absolutely insane. Um, Now, I'm assuming that the arrangement of bullet points is kind of a priority. And I'm
no.
baffled by the second one about China. Why? Okay. Oh, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to get straight into this. The president should issue an executive order making the HUD secretary a member of the Committee on Foreign Investments in the U.S., which will gain a broader oversight authorities to address foreign threats, particularly from China, with oversight of foreign ownership of real estate in both rental and ownership markets of single-family and multifamily housing. What does China and this have to do with HUD? What percentage of our public housing stock does China have an investment in? Do they have any investment in our
Look,
public
he
housing
make
stock?
that saying. What he make that saying? What the price of rice got to do with this in China? You know that
Mm,
saying when somebody say stuff and you just look at them, it's like, what that got to do with the price of rice in China? Like it just really has nothing to
yes.
do. Yeah, it don't have nothing to do with what I'm talking about at this moment. Like this, I I don't know. That's all I can say is I don't know.
Maybe this will help people understand where I'm coming from. I'm going to say it anyway. If we are truly a civilized society, if we want to purport that we are part of a Western civilization with certain human values, housing is not a privilege. Housing is not an entitlement. Housing, much like healthcare, is a fundamental human right. It is a fundamental human right. Why are we arguing
It's a
over fundamental human
necessity. Forget
rights?
right. It's a necessity. It's a
Hmm?
need. It's not even about rights at this point. It's a need. It's something that has to happen. You
You
know,
don't get that from this document.
not from
You don't
this
get this from
document, no. Yeah,
or Agenda 47.
it's
But why bring in the red? Why bring in the red herring of China?
it's
If you're
like
going
eat.
to,
You gotta
it's like a
eat.
it's like a non sequitur, and I agree. It's putting same as putting food on the table. If you're going to bring in China as a non sequitur, you better damn well explain why you did it. There's no explanation of
None.
what does housing have to do with the foreign of the what is Committee on Foreign Investments.
Yeah, and this is real. It's not like we making this up. These things are here. I'm telling
Here,
y'all, if y'all want a copy of this, please let me know. Like we put the link down, but if y'all don't want to download it, I'll send it to you. I literally will send it to you because people don't want to do stuff, and that's fine. Okay, whatever. If you don't like, I'm gonna
mhm,
apologize right now because I'm so not in a nice mood. So I'm gonna be very honest with you. But
okay.
if you don't want it, let me know. I will send it to you. This stuff is so real. It's
Mhm.
ridiculous.
Now, D. Turner did make a good point. China's owning. China. I don't know what percentage. I need to see these numbers. I hate blanket statements, but China apparently does own a percentage of privately owned homes, but that's still not public sector housing. And I'm going to clue Americans up on something. And remember, I'm an American who lived most of my life abroad. I'm going to just use London as an example. You would be amazed at how much real estate American corporations own in London alone. Forget any other Western European country. So we can't criticize China for owning private American housing stock when American companies are doing exactly the same thing abroad. We can't. If we're going to call China out on that, then we have to call ourselves out on that and stop that practice. But they're calling out China in that one. The
Yeah.
secretary should initiate a HUD task force consisting of politically appointed personnel to identify and reverse all actions taken by the Biden administration to advance progressive ideology. Without explaining what the progressive ideology is, there is a footnote, number 27. I don't know what that's referring to. I don't want to lose my place where I am. Um, yeah, that coming
The
back to this
footnote.
whole see the thing about politically appointed personnel, a private, I guess a normal civil servant would have guidelines, parameters, guardrails, assessment points. They are answerable. Who are these politically appointed people answerable to? Except the Trump administration. Again, we're talking about sorry, I'm going to actually now call it the proposed Trump regime because when you have fascists, they have regimes. I seem to have lost. I seem to have lost Tanya at the moment. Hopefully she'll be coming back. Um, and to me, that's really terrifying. So Chicago Council on Global Affairs for that. Yeah, if you could post a link to that, Sharon, that would be awesome. But I will definitely take a look at that. And again, they're coming from Biden. So again, I want to see the progressive ideologies that they're purporting that are specifically from the Biden campaign. Welcome back. I had every faith that you would be rejoining us.
Yeah, look, the footnote says, you get this. These initiatives are maintained under such designations as diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory, Black, Indigenous, Islander, and other people of color, and environmental, social, and governance. In
Got it.
other words, yeah, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Nope. Message received and
Message received.
understood. Again, it's my main complaint about this whole document is they drop these little nuggets that I know that their base is just going to pick up and run with, but there's no context. They don't go into any depth. They don't provide specific examples about what it is they're complaining about, except for LGBTQ and brown and black people. Oh, and apparently single parent households. Am I missing anything? Did I miss anything out on that short list? Oh, and non Christians.
I,
They clearly have a
yeah.
issue with that too. Because again, bottom of page 508, point number two, repeal climate change initiatives and spending in the department's budget requests. So if you have public housing, I don't know, in the south of Florida, which is being in, rising sea levels, this is not an exaggeration. I have friends and colleagues who live on, not far from the coast in Florida who are telling me in real time salt water is encroaching into the freshwater, the uh, areas of freshwater. It's killing flora, it's killing fauna, the animals, and the plants. So if you have a HUD public housing development that is, I don't know, being impacted by climate change, hurricanes. I'm getting ready for hurricane season in Charleston. Um, what happens if public housing in Charleston gets damaged by a bad hurricane? So what? HUD all of a sudden can't even say that the whole reason why storms have become a lot more powerful and much more frequent is because of climate change. But they can't say that. So if you can't say something, then how can you budget for something? This is the reality that we live in. I don't know what reality that these people live in, but that's the reality that the rest of us are living in. There is a real environmental impact on housing. You don't believe that? Ask all those people in Texas, some of whom still don't have power. They still don't have their power back. How long ago was that storm?
No, you're. I don't even know how long that storm was, but they getting ready for another one, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Or ask the good citizens of New Orleans after Katrina about the
Oh,
effects of
that
climate change and public housing and the hell that got unleashed.
right.
Without wanting to sound like a bleeding heart liberal on that one, but it is what it is. Sorry, folks. You're gonna hear me be a little bit more salty than usual today, because
I mean, I'm
parts of this.
salty. You already see it in my face. I don't know if y'all see it in my face or not, but I didn't. I'm a yeah that part. So
And then the last one, I know you want to speak about three, about repealing of the affirmatively furthering fair housing
that
regulation.
part, yes, ma'am, yes,
Eliminate,
sir.
eliminate the new housing supply fund. So they're going on about how families need housing. Housing is important. Private public partnerships again with new housing initiatives. But you're going to cut the budget that actually helps new affordable housing be built.
Yeah,
Make that math add up. That math's not mathing.
none of this stuff makes sense.
But you go on with number three because yeah.
Oh, okay, because I was about to take a sip. Sorry. Okay, so anyway, number three is called repeal affirmatively furthering fair housing regulation reinstituted under the Biden administration and any other uses. I'm this one right here, okay? Because I need y'all to really hear what I'm about to say. They want to repeal the affirmatively furthering fair housing regulation reinstituted under the Biden administration. So this means that put this back into action because they took it off. Okay? And any other uses of special purpose credit authorities to further equity. To further equity. That means that they don't want to make things equal. Okay? So let me tell y'all what that is. Because I have my notes. Affirmatively furthering fair housing. On February 9, 2023, HUD published in the Federal Register a notice of proposed rulemaking. The proposed rule would faithfully implement the Fair Housing Act statutory mandate to affirmatively further fair housing, which directs HUD to ensure that the agency and its program participants proactively take meaningful actions to overcome patterns of segregation, promote fair housing choice, eliminate disparities in opportunities, and foster inclusive communities free from discrimination. The public comment period ended on April 24th, 2023. HUD will take the upcoming months to review public comments before making revisions and finalizing the rule. The public can check this webpage or at regulations.gov for the final version. But this is now since been, redone and put back into play. But this is what they want to get rid of yet again once back in office. They don't
And
want
I
nothing.
would,
They don't want nothing equal. They don't want to put nobody on an equal playing field. Y'all need to understand that part. That's what this thing is. They don't want to put nobody on an equal playing field.
and I'm glad you said it that way because I'm going to briefly rewind the clock and take us back to the year 1973 when the Justice Department, the same Justice Department that Donald Trump hates with every fiber of his being, sued both him and his father for anti Black housing discrimination in their Wilshire properties and their Trump Village properties in New York City. Now, the conclusion of that was a bit murky. The Trumps didn't have to admit guilt, but they were found to be liable on a lot of the issues that were brought up. Coincidence that he wants to hold DEI? Trump wants to get rid of all of it.
All
DEI, affirmative action, housing security for anyone that doesn't toe the line that he feels as though we should all be toeing. I think it is a little bit more of a coincidence that his family went toe to toe with the Justice Department, in some ways lost that case, and in some ways were let off the hook. Um, and I think he's had it in for the Justice Department in affirmative action ever since then. You saying you believe that this goes back further with him and is far deeper with him? I'm inclined to believe that.
Y'all notice he ain't asked me my thoughts, right? Because he knew what I was going to say in ahead of time. So I'm just going to hush. I'm going to take a seat.
That's, like, take a sip, because this is what, out of all of this, this is one of the main things I really wanted to spend time on. If you can queue up that welfare recipient um, graphic.
Yes, I can.
So, everyone, I hope you are sitting down. Take a deep cleansing breath because I'm going to hit you with some stuff in a second. The Office of the Secretary should recommence proposed regulation put forward under the Trump administration that would prohibit non-citizens, including all mixed status families. Mixed status families,
This right here, y'all should get y'all what we about to share with y'all. Y'all should go get your own daggone bottles of wine. I ain't even gonna lie. I ain't even gonna lie.
don't even lie about that, you will.
Nope.
So, mixed status families, one parent is an American, one parent is not. So, the Trump administration that would prohibit non citizens, including all mixed status families, from living in all federally assisted housing. HUD's statutory obligations include providing housing for American citizens who are in need. Reforms must also ensure alignment with reforms implemented by other federal agencies where immigration status impacts public programs, certainly to include any reforms in the public charge regulatory frameworks administered by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Local welfare organizations, not the federal government, should step up to provide welfare for the housing of non-citizens. Aren't the children born of this U.S. citizens? Are they not? Do we not have birthright citizenship? So, because one of your parents, and this doesn't even clarify whether you're talking about someone who's an immigrant legally or not legally, here illegally, doesn't make that distinction. This is saying all mixed status families. You're a kid, one parent's not a citizen, you no longer qualify for HUD housing. And what happens if the Trump regime gets installed in 2025? What, you kicking all them kids out with their family?
Mhm.
This document bangs on about homelessness, what a scourge it is, how we need to get homeless people off the street. So what's your answer? You're gonna make more people homeless. You're gonna put more people on the streets, including children who are American citizens, people. This is why this group is so hot. Listen, if you if one of your parents immigrated to this country, so if you're second generation, even on one of your family lines, and you hate black people, I hate to tell this to you, be shaking every black person's hand, but for us in slavery and the cruelty that was done to free people of color, denying them their American citizenship, what was done to black people is the reason why there's birthright citizenship to begin with. Donald
But wait,
Trump's,
but wait, isn't
mhm,
Agenda 47, doesn't he say that? The same thing, just telling them to get out?
yeah, word for word. This is one of the paragraphs that man lifted from this document, or not him personally. Someone
Yeah,
on
I
his
mean, I
team
think I
lifted it
copied
from
it.
this
If I'm
doc.
not
Yeah,
mistaken,
you did,
yeah, I copied it.
and put it in there. This is crazy. You're talking about how you're pro life. These people are talking about how they're pro life. They're going to kick kids out onto the street because one of their parents is not an American citizen. Could be a legal resident, could have a green card. You getting kicked out if you're in HUD housing. And what is this going to say to all of the kind of MAGA loving private landlords? Oh, sorry, you're a mixed status household. You gotta, I don't rent to mixed status household. There's no protection for that. Oop, we may have lost Danya again. I'm sorry, folks, I'm not really sure what's going on at Danya's end. um this this really blew my mind. When I talk about cruelty, this is cruel. And I'm hoping Danya's gonna come. I believe she may be. There she is.
I'm back. Sorry. Yeah,
Mhm.
I copied it. I said compared to bullet under number 4, I said, and then if they have children, not only do the children get automatic citizenship, but they unlock a trove of additional government benefits flowing to illegal immigrants households. In the meantime, our vets suffer and our citizens suffer. On day one of my new administration, we will shut down this travesty and defend the wealth of hardworking middle class families. This is what he said. Now the problem with that is they they can't get, and I'm glad this is what we were talking about. And I'm glad it was mentioned because here's the kicker, y'all. Now, I'm going to go personal. I kind of got um I was a victim of identity theft, and as a victim of identity theft, I shared it with one of my cousins, and I told her about it, and she's a human resource person. And she actually told me a story in her job. And the story that she told me was how somebody was trying to, because her job hires in different states, and somebody was trying to hire this lady. And because she's a human resource person, she can go ahead and she can vet. She has to vet. So she can do background checks and all that other stuff. And this person that they was trying to hire could not do these background checks. So they couldn't hire the lady. He was like, well, let me try to do, let me get something else. Let me see what we could do. Do y'all know this lady came back with a whole nother person's information, a different birth date, a different everything? This woman was stealing somebody's identity. So the thing is, the moral of this is that These immigrants that this man is talking about, the way he's talking about them, as if they're coming in and stealing our jobs, they cannot get our jobs if they are not legal. So for him to come out of his mouth and actually take this and tell these people that they're taking our jobs, they cannot take our jobs if they are not legal.
My comment
It's
to you
us that's
was,
the problem. If our HR people are not doing their work, then
yeah.
they can't do their job. That's where the problem comes in. My cousin was doing her job. She did what she was supposed to do. And so because she did what she was supposed to do, this person could not get through. So do not come to me and tell me that this person did what she nah, Slim, you can't get in if you're not legal. It's
Now, my
crazy to
comment,
me.
because you raised, that was an amazing, that was an excellent point that you raised when we spoke about it. And my reply to that was to show out how out of touch Donald Trump is. The man talks like we're still in the 1950s, and he's
You talk
talking
like he's
about the
stupid.
black jobs of the 1950s, the standard jobs that African American and black people had in the 1950s. And I'm not saying that the majority, I'm saying the majority, but not, there are still a percentage of black Americans who make their, doing seasonal work, picking fruit and veg, doing the real kind of hardcore agricultural work side of things. But I'm going to argue, especially in the more urban areas or the smaller towns, we're more likely to work in retail, supermarkets, plus the professions, all of the
That's right.
professions, and tradespeople. You know,
That's right.
we're kind of at that. We've kind of gone. Now that through affirmative action, we've been able to enter into those spheres where we were previously locked out. So he's talking about when I swear to God, my I don't want to be in his head. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy to actually like being John Malkovich, actually being in that brain. But he's speaking about black people like we're still in the 50s. And that
It's not,
irritates
but
me
you know what,
so.
Brian? It's not even speaking about just black people. He's speaking to people like we're dumb. I
Mm,
mean, if we
yeah.
really want to get into it, because the bottom line is this. Everything when I was, speaking to my cousin about the whole situation and all of that was going on, they was really giving that stuff to her like she wasn't gonna pick that up. How about that one? You know what I'm saying? And like if you really, really look at the whole situation of that thing. They actually gave her a whole nother ID with a whole nother bit of information, but a picture of the same person. How you really think she's stupid enough to look at this and then say, "Oh, okay, this is a different person. Yes, she can go through." No. So that the thing is, it's crazy, and for them to go and actually step across and actually think that we're dumb enough to do that. One of the things that my cousin pointed out to me is that this is a job that we not going to do. And that was something that you and I was talking about. These are jobs, like you said, we've gone into retail and more professional people, black people. We've stepped up in so many words. We've stepped up, and when you said that, that made me think of what my cousin was telling me and everything. And she was telling me this is a job that we are not going to do. And this person and the person that she was talking with, he knows that she'll do this job because of the type of environment that it is, and so on and so forth, and blah blah blah. But the bottom line is that I, for them to actually insult the intelligence of this HR professional and what it is that she does and how she does her work and how she is not going to put her job in jeopardy, that's a slap in her face. And that's a
Like,
slap in, that's just a slap in her face to actually come at her in that manner.
and can I, because we have 5 minutes to go through something that's kind of complex, if you can pull
Oh,
up
please.
that graphic. The other thing that really angers me about this whole document, but this part in particular, is the inference the suggestion that white people aren't on welfare. Oh, yes, they are. And we have the stats to prove it once we actually get them up on the screen. Because Donnie and I were having a conversation this morning, and she was reading about how African Americans disproportionately received a larger amount of welfare assistance, which ran counter to data that I had access. So I shared this, and I'm not really interested in the age bracket, but here we go. This is breaking down. This is the Pew Research Center. So these are serious research people. So it breaks down who actually receives SNAP payments. And this is just one form of welfare. I really wanted to get into this. So, in the terms of the population of the United States of America, the people in terms of 2020 who received SNAP payments, 62.7% of them identified as being white. Of that 62.7, 39.8, so just over half of them, identified as white, not Hispanic. Presumably, the rest of that identified as being white and Hispanic. Black people, aka African Americans, only made up 27%. So when you hear welfare queens and lazy layabouts and all of that kind of stuff, all the dog whistles around entitlement and public assistance, when it comes to SNAP, and what I believe about SNAP must be true for most of what's called welfare. White people, white poor people who live in rural counties, you had better sit up and pay attention because this is going to hurt you too. It's going to hurt more of you than it's going to hurt more people that Asian Americans, 3.8. All other races or race combinations, Hispanic of any race, that's the Hispanic of any race is 27, and all other races combined, 6.6. Native born, 87.8. That's horrific. There's a whole history and legacy behind Native American. Look at those numbers. So whenever you hear that dog whistle about SNAP payments, welfare, housing benefit, look at that large number and who receives it. Do not be suckered in. Remove that black and brown face from your head. Remove it because it's not true. Yes, obviously, 27% of us receive public assistance. That's minuscule compared to the much larger group. And again, as a nation, we need to sit down and figure out why people are on public assistance to begin with, especially working people. You work 20 hours a week to 40 hours a week. Okay, actually, I should say if you're working 40 hours a week between one job or two jobs, you should be able to afford. You, you should be able to earn a livable wage. That makes me a socialist. That makes me a socialist.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you.
All right.
Oh,
The other
mhm.
thing that got me about this whole thing before we leave is the wording that was up here, because I want to approach that. So if y'all look at this, when you talk about this particular, when you talk about SNAP, like Brian was saying, and you talk about who's on it and everything. First of all, these numbers are amazing, and how it's now leaning more towards people, Caucasians, than it is African Americans, and so on and so forth.
And
But
two adult households that
right
they were the
into
majority.
right into in a two-family home.
Yeah,
But the thing that gets me is that when you go down and you get to how much do food is it how much food stamps, no, this one, which states have the highest and lowest rates of food stamps. But before I go to that, you get next to it, and when you're reading this, now you look at this chart and you actually see, you see who is white, you see all of the people. But when you actually read it, technically, it's not really, white people are not really mentioned. It says non-Hispanic white people accounted for 44.6% of adult SNAP recipients and 31.5% of child recipients in 2020. You don't really recognize white people in this particular reading. But when it really gets bad is when you go down and you start reading when it says which state has the highest and lowest rates of food stamp usage. It says in New Mexico, 22.9% of population receives SNAP benefits, the highest of any state according to the Pew Research Center. So when you think of New Mexico, you automatically think of people of color simply because it says Mexico in it. But then it goes to say more. SNAP recent figures and Census Bureau population estimates for July 2022, the most recent available. Then it says the District of Columbia is the next highest at 21.4%, followed by Oregon and West Virginia. Well, you guys all know that District of Columbia is supposed to be quote unquote chocolate city. So of course you're going to think that Black people are receiving stamps in the District of Columbia. But let me tell you something right now. I am in DC, and DC is not chocolate city. Okay?
Anymore.
Hasn't been
Not
for a very
anymore.
long time. So this is automatic. The wording itself is automatically making you think that it's more Black people on public on assistance, on welfare, receiving food stamps than it is others. So I want to leave you with that, and I'm going to give this. I'm going to make sure that you have this link so that you can actually read it for yourself and really dig into it, because we can't get into it because it's we're like 3 minutes out. But I overall, whoever wants the link, I know LaCrissa wants it. Whoever wants the link, just send me your email address and I will be happy to give it to you. We also have it on the link as far as the mandate for leaders. And the mandate for leaders, we also have it on our address. We hope you guys follow through. We hope you guys follow suit. Please read each chapter. Take it slow as you read it. Go chapter by chapter. This thing is something, it is real. It is something that needs to be addressed. You guys
And
need to,
do
pay attention.
I'll also post a link to Agenda 47. Do not be sucked in or fooled or gaslighted, or do not believe that somehow this is completely different and has nothing to do with Project 2025. Agenda
Because it does.
47 is Project 2025. It's just not 900 pages long.
Yep,
That's the difference.
it's done. So we have one more show next week, and it's with Oris Jenkins. You guys join us as we talk about his new book that just dropped actually today, I think. So again, I'm Donya Williams.
I'm Brian Sheffy, and we will see you next week at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Bye.